Jaya, Jaya.
Thank you, Christina. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Good morning. We get a moment. Where is Abhidheya? Your dad said I should greet you. And embarrass you. Why? Not both.
We do it every month.
Oh, okay.
Almost every month.
Our dad has a wonderful, he and a few other very successful, intelligent Indian businessmen formed something called the Bhaktivedanta Consulting Corporation. And they pro bono will consult complex management issues and all. And they've offered their services to the BI. So I plan to take advantage of it because I assure you, I'm more than need all the help I can get many times over. We'll also show a little video today. Oh, we'll begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. Could you put the password in? So today is not reading from God who dances. Rather, it's just a Bhagavatam verse. And that is the right verse. So there's a context here. This is all in the 10th canto, which is found in Krishna book. What is the context? Well, the name of the chapter is Krishna Teases Rukmini. Now, Rukmini is the principal wife of Krishna. This may raise many questions, but how they got married is a fascinating story. Rukmini Father was gonna suggested he marry another king, and father was a king, and that king, that was somebody, thank you, who was an enemy of Krishna. And so Rukmini just thought Krishna was the best for several reasons, because he was the most what?
Handsome,
Yes,
strong,
yes,
Wise,
yes.
everything,
What should say again?
everything.
Well,
The
more
most
specific. Yes, everything's true. Wealthy,
cool.
cool, and how does somebody become cool? By what quality?
Pronunciation.
Renunciation, yes, yes, yes. So Krishna had all these qualities in full. And she was wanted by Krishna. So she sent a messenger to Krishna. Please kidnap me. And I'm surrounded by guards, and I'm supposed to marry this jerk tomorrow. So, but in order to marry the jerk, the day before I have to go to this temple for certain prayers. So that's when you can capture me. And goes to the temple for the prayers. There's no Krishna. She's leaving. There's no Krishna. He gets worried. And just like in a good movie, Krishna at the last minute comes up with this chariot and kidnaps her. And the armies, Sundar and Shishupal are chasing him. And Balaram comes with his army. And it's a big movie. And she captures Rukmini, and then they get married. And now, so that's kind of the background. Now, this is very, very intimate matter. Krishna married stuff. What's going on here? And Vyasadeva, as explained in the Bhagavatam, you generally read all 9 cantos. You get to really understand philosophically and historically. And by the time you get to the 10th canto, you understand there is a supreme person, and he's a person. And we start developing a relationship. One of the earliest books Prabhupada published was the Krishna book. And that was a strange thing to do, because the most intimate part of the Bhagavatam, and here he is putting it out to the public. In fact, Prabhupada wanted it so badly, he sent Shama Sundar, his assistant, to see George Harrison. And Shama Sundar and George Harrison were tight friends till George Harrison passed on. Just to give you an example from the side, but George Harrison, Shama Sundar told me this story. He was putting out a new album way after the Beatles broke up, called Here Comes the Sun. Who has heard of that album? The album, a lot of the songs have to do with Krishna directly and indirectly. So he published George Harrison calls up Shama Sundar and says, I got a song. I don't even know if I should include it in the album. What do you think? And he plays for him over the phone, Here Comes the Sun. Shama Sundar says, that goes on the front of the album, which is what happened. So that was their relationship. It started off very deeply as friend Shama Sundar and George Harrison. So Prabhupada says to George Harrison, to Shama Sundar, I want George Harrison to pay for the Krishna book because it was so important. And there was very little money side of that. And George reluctantly Shama Sundar reluctantly goes to see George because his friendship was based on George was one of the most famous, richest people on the planet Earth at that time. He was. And Shama Sundar's friendship was he never asked George for anything, just his friend. just didn't ask me for anything. So, this another little aside story, because the Bhagavatam always has stories within stories, so I can follow along. When we were building the Alachua temple, there was one devotee, sorry, his name slips my mind. Face. Anyway, he passed on, but he designed and built the whole temple of Alachua. And every time Ambarish, who was living out in Alachua then, still goes to an important grandson. Every time Ambarish would come out to the temple, and he would see Ambarish, he'd walk over with a hand of $10. He said, everyone's always asking you for money. You're gonna take $10. And he was do it all the time. Ambarish told me that story. So similarly, Shamsundar never asked George for anything. So Prabhupada said, ask him, I want a Krishna book. It was that important. And Prabhupada knew about that relationship. And Shamsundar expressed his hesitancy. Prabhupada said, do it. So he went to see George Harrison. He's just talking to him. Says, we'd like you, Prabhupada would like you to pay for this Krishna book. It's very important. And George, is that book? Oh no, you're like the rest of them, coming to take my money. That's all you care about. And Shamsundar becoming sheepish, wondering if I did the wrong thing or not. Then all of a sudden, there's a giant bolt of lightning, and all the lights go out in the house. And George Harrison says, that's Krishna, I'm supposed to give you the money. Okay. And it was done. And then the Krishna book came out. Now, why is that important? Because the Krishna book was such an early book that's out of order. It's not in the right order. You first study the 9 cantos, you practice sadhana bhakti, you do things, and then you get into the 10th canto, and Prabhupada's putting the 10th canto out right away. When I was in India, Prabhupada said, he said, what do I do to understand better? We have to read my books. But the Gita wasn't in India yet. The only first book I could get in India, the only one, was the Krishna book. It was so important. So what did Prabhupada do? How is it that Prabhupada put the Krishna book in the wrong order? He'd done all 9. Of course, he had the first canto done. But that was only the Indian edition, not the American edition. Just whatever he could fit in the trunk. Then he put out Krishna book. Why? Well, because Krishna book incorporates all the lessons of the 9 cantos into one book. Prabhupada, through this miraculous presentation in English, he captured all the essence of 9 cantos, put it in there. And why was it important? Well, there's a reason why it's important. And every morning when we get up, we offer this prayer to Prabhupada. And in that prayer, we say to Prabhupada, there are 2 words in that prayer that tell us why the Krishna book was so important to come out so early. What are the 2 words? Oh, who said that? Very good. Perfect. Oh, that was well done. So, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi, we're basically impersonals. Even in our own society, we'll treat each other very impersonal. Impersonals is a real enemy. And Krishna as a person is the key. I'll give you an example. At the Bhaktivedanta Institute, we have a great network we're developing of friends. There's different organizations around Galileo Institute, Noetic Institute, Moody Institute, International Conscious Research Lab. These are all made up of PhD scientists of some renown who all accept that the world is not physical, that they're dualists. The mind is different than matter. It's exercised through the brain, but it's not the brain. They all believe in the same thing. So we have a network, work together. One of the more prominent of the organizations just asked me to join their board of directors, which is very good for relationships among all these groups. Yet, when I listen to their talks, they almost all end up in something called panpsychism. You see that too, Christina? You've listened to some of the same talks. Dean Raid and these other really nice goodness people, but they end up as panpsychics, meaning consciousness is everywhere, but there's no person. So it's the person that they're missing. And that's what we add to the table. We add personhood. So Prabhupada put out this Krishna book to give us the sense of God as a person. So when we're reading this chapter, Krishna teases Rukmini, there's two themes that develop. One is the personhood of God. And we're watching Krishna interact with Rukmini in a very personal but deeply profound way. And that's what this chapter is about. And when we're reading it, there's some aspects come out mundane, but it always ends up deeply transcendental. And so this is setting the stage for this particular chapter. The second theme that comes up in here is a very important theme. It's one of the themes that's very prominent in the nectar of devotion, all through our devotional life. And that's a theme of gratitude. And in this chapter, we're going to see how thankful Rukmini is to have Krishna, even though Krishna just teased her to the maximum, and how thankful Krishna is to have Rukmini, and how apologetic he was. In other words, that's what loving relationships are like. So we're learning the highest essence of love. And there are many stories like this in the 10th canto, and this is one of them. We have the Radha Krishna stories, there's different stories, but this is the one with Rukmini. So that's the context of what we're dealing with. So the two themes we're talking about is this loving relationship and the gratitude that that they're experiencing for each other. So we'll begin with the verse. I am going to ask one of you to chant the verse while I cue up a short video that goes with the class. Who would like to lead the chanting of the verse? And then somebody else read the verse and somebody read the purport. Yes. We have in back, we have. This is 12, 60, 10, 60, 12.
Rajabhyo Bibhyata Subru Samudram Sharanam Gatan Balavadvi Kritadishan Prayastyakta Nipashanam Rajabhyo Bibhyata Subru Samudram Sharanam Gatan Balavadvi Kritadveshan Prayastvakta Nripasanam Rajabhyo Bibhyata Subru Samudram Sharanam Gatan Balavadvi Kritadveshan Prayastvakta Nripasanam
Okay, you're hosting? You can give me screen sharing permission. Okay, I'll read the verse. I'm queued up. Terrified of these kings, O lovely browed one, we took shelter in the ocean. We become enemies of powerful men, and we practically abandon our royal throne. So, Sri Vithanath Chakravarti comments on this verse. The Lord's mentality here can be understood as follows. When I gave Rukmini a single flower from the heavenly Parijata tree, Satyabhama showed such a torrent of fury that I could not pacify her, even by bowing down at her feet. Only when I gave her a whole Parijata tree was she satisfied. Rukmini, however, did not display any anger, even when she saw me give Satyabhama the whole tree. So how can I enjoy the nectar of angry words from this wife who never feels jealousy, who's supremely sober and always speaking pleasingly? Thus, considering the Supreme Lord decided, if I speak to her like this, I will be able to provoke her anger. So I'm going to just put a little more context here. Krishna was very insulting. He said, you've married, way below your status marrying me. I'm just, not a high-class person, not here from a kingly wealthy family. And it goes on, but really, there were so many princes who wanted you, marriage and friendship, Krishna says, are between two people who are equal in terms of their wealth, beauty, influence, physical appearance, capacity. In other words, you should be equal, but never between a superior and an inferior. You didn't realize this, and therefore you chose us as your husband, even though we have no good qualities and are glorified only by deluded beggars. It's a way of referring to the Brahmins. Now you should definitely accept a more suitable husband than me. A first-class man, the royal order, can help you achieve everything you want, both in this life and the next. Kings like Shishupal, Salva, Jarasandha, these are all happen to be demons, turns out. I wish to dispel the arrogance of these kings that I carried you away. My good woman, they were blinded by the intoxication of power. My purpose was to curb the strength of the wicked. Krishna says the Gita, you die. I've come to, how does that verse translate? Thank you. We've come to save the sadhus and take care of the rascals who now are all getting elected to offices. We care nothing for wives, children, and wealth. Always satisfied, we do not work for body or home. Therefore, I don't care about any of these things. You should have married a man who cared about these things. I don't give it, you know what? And you do know what? Rukmini had thought herself especially beloved by the Lord because he never left her company. By saying these things, or he vanquished her pride, and then he stopped speaking, and Rukmini was so upset. I gave and she had never heard such unpleasantries from her beloved, the Lord of universal rulers. She became frightened. She actually fainted. And when she fainted, Krishna had to assume his forearm form to lift her up with two arms and stroke her hair and hold her with the other arms. She was so upset. She was so fearful that Krishna says, I was just teasing you. I wanted to see your anger. But she didn't show anger. She didn't show anger. She just said, this is how Krishna feels. What can I do? She just showed the deepest love. And that's what is being taught here. Then they go on to have a discussion, show how grateful they are for each other. It's a beautiful discussion in the chapter. And Rukmini was fully satisfied and understood that his words had been spoken in jest. So she gave up her fear, not her anger, that her beloved would reject her. And then they speak. A very interesting thing happens. Then Rukmini turns around everything Krishna says what you said is really true. And what you said is really just showing your greatness and how much I love you, because you are detached. You're not like any of these kings, and turns it all around. And in fact, Rukmini wins the argument. It actually defeats Krishna. And we find this is extremely common in the Bhagavatam, where Draupadi, Kunti, the list goes on, where the woman actually philosophically defeats the man. Very common theme. Sometimes we get a different impression, but that's not what the text tells us. So this is what's going on here. And I think there's one more verse near the end I'll look at. Oh, I mean, it's beautiful how Rukmini is just praising Krishna and being grateful. And then Krishna it expresses his affections and for Rukmini, and the gratefulness is overwhelming. So, and so the self-satisfied Supreme Lord of the universe, enjoyed with the goddess of fortune, engaging her in lovers' talks, and thus imitating the ways of human society. The Almighty Lord Ari, preceptor of all the worlds, behaved like a conventional householder in the palace of his other queens, performing the religious duties of a family man. So, Krishna is looking mundane, but it's all transcendental. And this is, why does Krishna come in human form? Well, one is his original form, but he has many forms. Could come 4 arms or whatever. He comes to attract us. And he's showing us what the ideal loving relationships look like, and he's showing it with great gratitude. With that, I'm going to give you one of my favorite songs growing up in the Jewish tradition. I'm going to play for you. It's the ultimate Jewish song of gratitude, which is sung every year at, well, what's the Jewish holiday that corresponds to Jesus' Last Supper? Passover. It's a tradition that was followed in Jesus' time. It was an ancient tradition. So at that time, I don't know if they sang this exact song, but they might have, but it's a song of gratitude. And since this verse is about gratitude, and it's Easter this week, and it's Passover this week, I thought I would give you the Judeo-Christian's my favorite song of gratitude, sung in a modern way. Let me see. Okay, now I just have to share a screen here. Is it coming up? Yes. Okay. but I made a mistake.
Thank you for all of the amazing things that we've been given in our lives, and also saying that even if we had just been given one, Dayenu, it would have been enough.
Now, I'm from Texas, so we're going to give this Dayenu a bit of a Texas swing. Y'all ready? A 1, 2, 3. Ilu Hotzianu mi Mitzrayim Hotzianu mi Mitzrayim Dayenu 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 Ilu Natan lanu et hashabat Natan lanu et hashabat Dayenu 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 Ilu Natan lanu et haTorah Natan lanu et haTorah Dayenu 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 Dayenu
Okay, what happened there is the Last Supper is a meal of gratitude. I'm not going to go into the whole Passover story, but Jesus and his apostles are gathered right before Jesus' crucifixion. That was Good Friday. He was crucified on Sunday. And so Jesus, at his last meal, is doing the same thing that I did every Passover growing up, an expression of gratitude. And the song says, God, you did this much, that would have been enough. And then you gave us a Torah, you gave us a Sabbath, you gave us this, you took us out of Egypt, took us like, any one of these things would have been enough. But you kept going on and on, doing more and more. It all would have been enough. I'm thankful. It's the opposite of the song that many of us would like to sing. Well, God, you gave me a nice breakfast. Well, what's my lunch going to be? And what's my dinner going to be? And you gave me a nice spouse, but what are my children going to be? What's this? It's hankering. It's the opposite of hankering. It's saying, I've enough. In Sanskrit, I think the word santosh means that, I believe. Enough. Is that right? Excuse me?
Satisfied.
Satisfied. Yeah, santosh is satisfied. Enough. So the idea is that that's enough. So here we're saying, God, I'm not asking for anything. So I told you this story before, but I'll tell you, I'll repeat it because it's worth mentioning, and maybe there's some who haven't heard it. Some years ago, a wonderful Tulsi Rani, who knows her? She's in New York, married to Ramachandra, and they lived in Krishna house. Rupachandra, Ramachandra, it's all the same. It's all one. So Rupa Chandra was getting his PhD here, and Tulsi Rani was rendering service, and it turned out to be love at first Krishna lunch. So they were about to get married, and when they got married, she had a dilemma. Now he's from an Indian Christian family from Singapore. She's from a Jewish family, and her father had died. And she kind of promised her father a Jewish wedding when she would get married. And her mother was reminding her of that. And if you know anything about Jewish mothers, they're very good at reminding. Expert. Shruti Sarkar lived in Israel for a while. He's extremely familiar. What? Yeah. That's right. You would be my mother. Does the same thing. So Tulsi Rani approaches me and says, I'm getting married in New Raman Reddy. I want to do a Vedic Jewish wedding. So I said, well, so Chaturapma would do the Vedic side, and I would do the Jewish side. And I studied hard for this. I had Hanan, who used to run Krishna lunch from Israel, go over all the mantras with me, Jewish mantras, and get it right. I had to give a sermon and dressed up in the appropriate rabbinical gear, and went out to New Raman Reddy. And there we have this joint wedding. Were you at that wedding? With this joint wedding. And then the wedding went very well. Her mother was very satisfied. I have pictures of it, but I should have queued that up ahead to show you the Chaturapma and Vedic outfit, meaning the Jewish outfit with the parents. It's quite nice. And then as soon as the wedding was over, I didn't even stay for the feast. I had to run to the airport, fly to New York for a meeting with Radhanath Swami. And as soon as I walk in to see Radhanath Swami, he says to me, so I understand you just did a marriage. News travels fast in ISKCON. I said, yes, but I'm disturbed by it, Maharaj. I'm really disturbed by it. Because I found the Vedic part, so-called Vedic is correct way, of asking, God, give me this, give me that, give me this, give me. I want 100 children and this and that, whatever it is. Just, I want to be blessed for all these things. And the Jewish part was, in fact, there were 7 vows in the Hindu part and 7 vows in the Jewish part. They're very identical. But all the 7 of Jews, what can I do for you? What service can I offer you? And I said, I found the Jewish part much better, philosophically. And he said, of course, what we do is all Karma Kanda stuff. It's not real Vedic stuff. When we do all this asking for something from God, that's what Karma Kanda is. This is the Karma Kanda part of the Vedas. And some of the Old Testament is a little strange. It's as if God had an anger management problem. And some of the Old Testament has great bhakti in it. And same thing with the New Testament. There's bhakti everywhere. And so he's saying the ceremony you were doing hit upon the bhakti aspect of the tradition. So that's the key is gratefulness of how we can be in this. Rukmini and Krishna end up so grateful. They end up in this lover's quarrel because Krishna says you should have married higher up. And then she, instead of getting angry, just collapses. And then he says, well, I'm just teasing you. And she goes on to say how you are the highest and I did marry the best. And he goes on to say, yes, but I could not have done anything better than you. And they just offer gratefulness to each other. That is called loving exchange. And the in the Bhakta Asamrita Sindhu, one of the qualities of Krishna is listed number 17 is being grateful. And I'll just read a little piece of it here. Krishna feels a great obligation to his devotees, and one is the example of dealing with Jambavan. When Lord was present as Ramachandra, Jambavan, the king of the monkeys, rendered faithful service to him. When the Lord appeared again as Lord Krishna, he married Jambavan's daughter and paid him all respects that is usually given to superiors. Of course, that's long time from Ramachandra to Krishna. An honest person is obliged to his friend if some service has been rendered. Since Krishna is Supreme Personality, how can he forget an obligation to his servitor? And Krishna is like that. So when any of you feel like Rukmini in despair, oh, has Krishna forsaken me? That's what she thought. Just remember, Krishna is always there with you. He's always in your heart. He's always your well-wisher and friend. And that's why the Krishna book came out. So we have that personal relationship with God. So I'm going to stop here if there are any questions. I have another story to tell, but first I want to see if there are any questions. Comments, reflections, criticisms, good joke of the day. Oh, Vanina, my friend, Haribo. Vaninath is a very special devotee. I'll praise him. Most of you won't know it, but he's been president of so many centers, saved Krishna Lunch, saved New Raman Reti. The amount of service he has done is very unknown, but very appreciated. It's hard to calculate how much he's done in this lifetime. So many different services, each done with dignity. Prabhupada Priya.
Krishna. Okay. Prabhu, I'm just wondering if you were ever at a marriage ceremony that was conducted by Srila Prabhupada, and whether he did, like what he did, because I can't imagine Prabhupada doing like a karma kanda ritual.
He did. I wasn't, but I've seen it in Yadavara's films. The marriage, and a very simple, short, sweet fire sacrifice. We stretch out these ceremonies so long. So Hriday Namraj, Guru Prasad Swami, and I went to a wedding in Oklahoma. And the grandparents, father was a disciple of Hriday Namraj, wife a disciple of Guru Prasad Swami, Gujarati family. And the granddaughter was getting married. And we're like the family priests, all of us. So we went to the wedding. Actually, I went to the engagement party. And the engagement party, there were 1,500 guests invited, because the father was the president of Indian Hotel Owners of America, which are all named what? What's their last name? Patel. And I get on the stage. I have to give the blessings to the bride and groom. The other Maharajas weren't there. And I began, wait, before I have blessings, I have an important announcement to make. Mr. Patel, you left your car lights on. But most of them didn't get it. They were all named Patel. So then we're at the wedding. And the room is full. And we're given 3 honorary chairs in front with higher backs. And, the usual, it was a little sadhu treatment. So we're sitting there and the ceremony is going on and on and on. And the room is packed. But we're in a row in front of all the other rows. So we can't see behind us. Finally, after a while, I turn around and there is no one in the room but us. They'd all gone out into the lobby. I'm going to trade you a day's in for, 2 Motel 6s and, whatever's going on. And we're the only ones sitting there. No one is there. Not the family, not anyone but us. So I poked Maharaj, Guru Prasad, he poked Hriday Maharaj, and they look back and we're out of there as quickly as we can. And it goes on and on and on. Even the people there couldn't stand how long it went on. So when Prabhupada was here, there was short, sweet ceremonies, a little talk. It was like a normal wedding. I mean, I've been to many, many weddings, Christian weddings, Jewish weddings, pagan wedding. I've been to every different kind. And they're usually short, sweet ceremonies. This idea of going on and on for days and days, that's another tradition. Any other question on that? Somebody didn't ask the obvious question. I read a paragraph here. What was weird about the story of Jambavan? Something weird about it. Did they pick up on it? Yes.
I mean, there are a couple of weird things. Should I say both of them?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so a weird thing that occurred to someone who expressed this weird thing to me was that a bear had a human daughter. Another weird thing is that that human daughter, she was just kind of handed over to her would-be husband, and it didn't seem that she had any choice in the matter, any say in the matter. She was just like, here you go. That was a good fight. Here's a gift for you.
Well, on the latter one, I'll just comment briefly that there's a science of matching up people. For example, let's say I have a prize cow or horse. I'm going to breed it very carefully so the horse or cow that comes out gives a lot of milk or runs faster. There's a whole science. Similarly, there's a science when humans mate to have somebody of real high quality. And so that science uses astrology and other methods of compatibility. Even nowadays, if somebody wants to get married, they can run not only astrologically, run compatibility surveys. We take these surveys, and are you likely compatible or not? This famous psychotherapist, John Gottman, a brilliant guy, has written surveys that are very predictive. Will the marriage work or not? Are they compatible? So there was a science done outside the science of chemistry. When boy and girl meet each other, there's all that endorphins come. Oh, I love thee not. I love, so much poetry and all the endorphin, but getting past the endorphin stage, I mean, that's natural, it's normal. I'm not saying it's something terrible, but it's not a good way to make decisions. And so therefore there's a science. So they accepted the science as introduced by the elders. Generally, we don't know that science very well now. So we do a hybrid in which many times ISKCON will recommend, oh, this might be a good match, this might not be, but it's always up to the individuals to decide. And even Prabhupada tried doing matches and realized it's not going to work in the West. So he said, okay, I'm out of that business. I'm a Swami. I have an excuse. So it goes, but what about Jambavan being a monkey and then generations later, there's a human? How did that work? I was wondering if someone would pick up that weirdness. Well, let me give you two answers. One, I don't know, because I don't know the details, and I'd have to study the commentaries of the Vaishnavas. I'm sure I'm not the first one to ask it, and see what the commentaries, Sridhar Swami, Vishnu Chakravarti, they'll discuss these things. But I didn't look that up. But I did attend a class of Satchidananda Swami's yesterday. That was one of the most, anybody listened to that class yesterday? Broadcast by the New York group of, I forgot what they're called. They're the Enneagram teachers in New York, Rasanath, Hari Prasad. Anyway, it's a brilliant class. So I'll tell you, Trudy, do I have 3 minutes for a story? Okay. So Satchidananda told this story that kind of answers some of the Jambavan issue, at least partially. And this story is so incredible. And I can't tell it anything like he did, but it's a true story. I know it to be true and amazing. And Radhanath Swami has similar stories. So these, would anybody like to hear a story of great mystical proportions beyond your imagination? Something that would make a great sci-fi movie. So I'll tell the very brief version. It's recorded, you can all hear it. Satchidananda Swami is up in the Himalayas, not high up, but in the Himalayas, sitting on the bank of the Ganges on a rock, meditating. He went there to chant. And he was staying in an ashram in the Himalayas. And this area, the Ganges, is surrounded by jungle. The jungle goes almost up to the bank. And then there's paths to the village where he's staying. And on the day before, he saw a tiger and got very nervous. And the locals said, don't worry, these are not like the Bengali tigers. They don't bother people. In fact, they sometimes even protect us. It's strange. So he wasn't worried. And he went solo. He does this, sit by the Ganges and try to get real deep with the holy name. He is expert at getting deep with the holy name. Practically, I haven't met anyone who's so good at teaching how to connect with the holy name. Who was going to be in New Vrindavan for his seminar, May 17th? Anybody from here? I am. Okay. Oh, Christina, you'll be there. Yeah, it's really special. I've been about 4 times. So he's sitting on the bank the next day after the tiger, and he hears some twigs breaking in the woods. What could that be? Then a lot of twigs. Then a lot of twigs. I mean, tigers don't go around in groups like that. You're wondering what it is. Then out of the woods comes this giant monkeys. I forgot the name of the kind of monkey. Langur monkeys. They're very big and kind of whitish gray. No, the mystery part hasn't come yet. We're getting to the Yeti. And they come out and a whole, what do you call a group? I don't know. There's a name for a group of monkeys, but oh, I know, we call it fraternity. Yeah. So anyway, so they come out, this group, and here's all the, you heard all this, you're getting nervous. What's coming from the woods? And there's, I don't know, maybe a few dozen of them. I don't remember how many come out of the woods, and they're ferocious. And he is sitting on a rock that they use to get their drinks from the Ganges. So he is in their territory and he's not supposed to be there. This is our territory. And they're angry. They have big teeth and they're baring their teeth. And he goes, I'm in trouble. What can I do? I can throw a rock, but then they'll all attack me. And then there's another, the biggest of the monkeys was ahead and sitting on a rock nearby. And all of a sudden he yells, he's king of the monkeys. And all the monkeys stop because he's the boss. It's like if Shruti Sarkar yelled at you, would you all stop what you're doing? And I probably wouldn't. Okay, so I stopped. And then he doesn't know what to do. What does Satyananda Swami do? The monkeys are all sitting there. They're calm now. And the other monkey is sitting there, yelled, and they stop. So he says, okay, I'm going to go back to my meditation. And today that meditation was working on the sacred symbol Om. And so he goes to chanting Om. Om. You can all say it once. One more time. Vibrating. Monkey starts vibrating along with it. Monkeys don't talk. And they have some way of making sound, but not human vocal cords. And the monkey is saying Om with it. And this is going on. He didn't know how long, but almost an hour, he thinks. Om, the leader. The others couldn't. The others are just sitting there. They're monkeys. Yes, Sean. Yeah, their lips were perched like that. They couldn't quite do it. And so, and then it ended. Then the king of the monkeys starts walking away and stands up almost completely straight and goes like this. And the monkeys run away. Waves to the monkeys go in the woods. So what does this mean? Sajinam. And Shama, you listen, I saw you were on Zoom on that class, so if I missed something, tell me. So Satchidananda Swami then understood what happened. There are stories in the Bhagavatam, Radha Swami confirms these from his experience, that some great yogis have one of the cities. One of the cities is they can assume a different form. Let's say I was a great yogi, wanted to go off in the Himalayas by the bank of the Ganges and meditate. Oh, what would I have to do? Where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? Yeah, there's all things to do. But if I was a monk, all the problems are solved. You just live in the woods, you sleep in a tree, you finally get berries and fruits, and there are no problems. And there's something else. If a great sadhu can form the place of a monkey, there's one other huge benefit. What is that? Huge benefit that he couldn't get in the human form. Is a benefit that some of you wanted in your own life at one time or another. A benefit. What is that benefit? Think for a moment. The benefit of being a monkey, not a human.
People will leave you alone.
Yes, people leave you alone. Solitude. These are great yogis. They don't want anyone bothering them.
Something
Yeah. Well, every one of us want to be, I love humanity. It's people I can't stand. Every one of us has felt that mantra at one time or another. So sometimes these yogis, they just want to really get into the meditation so they could change their form. And that's in the literature. It's very, very rare. And you never see it. But Satchidananda Swami saw that. So I thought I would share with you, because how did we get here? Well, we're talking about a chapter in the Bhagavatam that really epitomizes gratitude between, in this case, Krishna and Rukmini. It's a beautiful chapter to read. And then I referred to the discussion of the qualities of Krishna, of gratitude in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And in that, Prabhupada uses the story of Jambavan as an example. So that led us to the monkey story. And that's how we got there. With that, I think we'll stop here. Thank you very much. We're a little over time. I'm not going to starve you today. Hare Krishna.
It's nice that you came today, so yesterday, it's your birthday.
No, I didn't. Okay. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Krishna, it feels good to be 39.
Ramatita Prabhu's been involved with Krishna House, Krishna Watch for so many decades. You were involved when you were the one with the devotees who bought this house, right?
Swami and I negotiated the deal on it. We had no money, and somehow we bought this house. And we bought it, and it was it was one of the few times that I had great joy making a real estate agent cry.
That's right.
Yeah, we cried.
My problem.
Yeah. You know him. And Vaidinath was involved with this too. He was president of the farm when we bought the house. So he was president of New Ramanreti, all 8 of us out there. Anyway, we negotiated a deal, but this was a fraternity house. But the one fraternity owned it, but they rented to another, which is pure animal house. It took us probably a few months to get the beer cans out of the walls. I'm not exaggerating. Might still be a few somewheres. But don't worry, I assure you, they're empty. Considering that fraternity. And so we're negotiating the lawyer, Harvey Baxter, who you know, who represented the fraternity selling, really liked us. And we didn't have, and we were still, after we did a first, second, third mortgage, we didn't have any money. We just pieced it together somehow. $100,000. It was a lot then. So we went and did a behind the scenes with the owner's representative, Harvey Baxter. And he was like a senior attorney in town at the time. We said, Harvey, we don't have a real estate agent. You do. Usually there's a buyer and a seller agent. So the seller, he should give back half his commission. He said, you're right. I'll make him do it. So we went to the closing and $2,500 was that amount. And he had agreed to the real estate agent, Mr. Riles, and then we're there and he says, I just can't do it. My broker won't let me do it. We can't do it. So I said, okay, we can't do the deal. And with that, he had the check in his pocket the whole time and took it out. And we bought the house as he's crying over his $2,500. And you don't want to see other people suffer, but in this case, that is okay. And that's how we got Krishna House, the original house. And eventually, when Savyachachy was and then Kalakanta bought additional properties to make the whole thing, but that's the original house. Okay, with that, we'll stop here. Thank you for the birthday greetings. Thank you for having me at class. Hare Krishna.
Prasade Govinde.